This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, December 4th, 2023. Case file number 1365, written by Burlier Quill, Dragonfly 813. A few years back, my grandfather passed away and my mother used a symbol of a dragonfly as a sign that he was with her. Anytime she saw a dragonfly, she knew he was with her. Flash forward a few years and my sister moves off to college and her room number is 813. I don't think anything of it until the following year when I moved off to college, a different school should add, and get the same room number 813. Finding this interesting, my mom looks up the number 813 to see what it means, and sure enough, 813 is a number of the dragonfly, something to do with how the numbers form a dragonfly. Even more insane is that I moved in before my roommate, so I got to pick my side of the room, and the side I ended up choosing had a tiny little dragonfly pushpin left in the corkboard from the previous residence. I tend not to get caught up in things like this, but I truly could not find even the slightly logical explanation for any of this. Case file number 1366, written by AMLT, 1983. Ghosts of relationships past, present, and future. I'll start off with, I don't believe in ghosts or spirits or alien abductions or missing time and any of that, but I was in college and in a long-distance relationship with my girlfriend in another state. We tried to make it work, but I broke up with her. While it was the correct decision, I didn't handle it correctly, and I knew I broke her heart. I worked at a small hardware store when I was in high school, and I went back to grab something in electrical, and someone grabbed my hand. Somehow, immediately, I was visited by three spirits essentially, like Scrooge. Ghost of girlfriend, past, present, and future. I saw my girlfriend crying when I broke up on the phone with her in her dorm room. What she said, what color her bedspread was, everything. Years later when we met up, and I asked about when we broke up, and I told her I could complete her sentences about what happened. Stuff no one except her knew. Girlfriend's present and future visits. I don't recall much of the present, I think I saw her slowly moving on, but the future was spot on of her marrying like an Air Force pilot, adopting a deaf child from China, and living in Hawaii. Like spot on, exactly what happened. When I was left from the visitors, I was back on that aisle, and my bosses thought I had left 2 hours ago because no one had seen or heard from me. When they checked the camera at my request, only cameras were on the main aisles, they saw me walk into the aisle and 2 hours later walk out of that aisle. No footage of me for 2 hours leaving it or anyone else going on that aisle before me or during the missing time. I think about this a lot. Bonus file written by Rubber Soul 93, The Whispering Pines. About 6 years ago, I was at my boyfriend's house, now fiancé. He lived in a secluded area down a dirt road. There were other houses, but his property was very private and surrounded by trees and woods, and houses were not very close together. You could only ever see the closest neighbor's house through the trees during fall and winter, after the leaves fell. The house and property never really felt welcoming. I'm not sure how to explain exactly, but I never enjoyed being outside there, even though it was a beautiful and quiet place. There was a large deck, but we never used it. There were woods all around the house, and in the woods was a weird pond that the dogs would sometimes play in. I went to the pond only once, just me and the dogs. There was a foot trail to the pond, and while walking it, I saw what appeared to be very long human hair on the ground. I thought it was strange, but continued to the pond. When I got there, the water was completely black, and I didn't think the dogs should play in it anymore, so I tried to call them back, but they wouldn't come. That was also strange because the dogs were always so well behaved and always came when I called them. I went about my day, not thinking much more about this particular incident, but I still continued to think about the pond and the woods and the strange feeling I got while I was there, but I would always brush it off. Later on in our relationship, I ended up moving in with him. It was very dark out there at night, and there were no floodlights. It was a manufactured home that sat on a foundation, and the windows and doors were probably about 8 feet off the ground. We were huge night owls and worked swing shifts, and it was 2 a.m. on a weeknight when this happened. We had the bedroom window open, and it had no screen. We didn't have air conditioning, and we lived in the south at the time, so it was hot during the summer. Anyways, we were just hanging out and had some music playing, and I was sitting on the bed with my legs crossed, back facing the window. My fiancée is sitting at a small table facing me. Suddenly, the hair on my arms stand up, and I get goosebumps all over my body. My fiancée randomly stands up, and all I can hear next is footsteps outside, like someone running towards the window and getting close fast. I stood up so fast and screamed. I don't know why I screamed, but I did. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread and fear. By the time I was standing up and had turned around, the curtains were flying around like a strong gust of wind was blowing them. But it was so still and quiet outside that night, and there was no wind. The curtains settled almost immediately, and all was silent again. We both saw it, both felt it, and couldn't explain it. We have only talked about it twice, the night it happened and the next day. We've never spoken about it again, and it still scares the crap out of me. I've only lived there for 8 months before we moved out of state, but thinking back on it now, I don't think we were ever alone out there. Case file number 1367, written by Binary Inc. My friend vanished into thin air right in my living room. I had a friend over last night. We ran into each other earlier in the day, and we made plans to have dinner together. She comes over and we hang out on the couch for around an hour, just chatting and whatnot. I stand up because I get a phone call, so I go into my bedroom for around 10 to 15 minutes. I go back out and she's not there anymore. Okay, so she's in the bathroom, right? I sit on the couch to wait for her, but she doesn't come out. I go check on her. The bathroom is empty. Now I'm weirded out. Did she leave for no reason? I didn't hear the door open or close, and I have a pretty heavy door. I even went outside into the hallway to check if she was there for some reason, but she just promptly disappeared. So now I'm thinking she left for whatever reason, so I called her. It rings for a while and she picks up. Immediately I think it's weird. If she left my flat, she should be on the street, but it's very quiet wherever she is and she sounds like she just woke up. I asked her why she left my flat, and she had no idea what I was talking about. I get frustrated and ask where she is. I'm at home taking a nap. Your phone call woke me up. I could hear rustling sheets, and as I said, there's no way her side of the phone call would be so quiet if she just left my flat. I live in a busy area. I request to video call her, and there she is, in her home, in her bed. She has no makeup on, she's in her PJs looking confused, and her eyes are still kind of puffy from sleep. I asked her if she remembered coming to my flat. She looked confused. Did we make plans today? She said that after running into me, all we did was chat, say goodbye, and then she went home to take a nap. Obviously, there's no way she got home, removed her makeup, undid her hair, changed her clothes within 15 minutes of my place. She lives like half an hour away from me. I have no clue what to think of it. Case file number 1368, written by Moniya. My kid's backpack disappears in broad daylight. I took my son with me to the office yesterday because he didn't have school that day. He brought his backpack with snacks and his phone inside it. He was carrying the backpack with him when he left the house. I made sure he had it because his phone charger and all the stuff he needs is in there. We get to the office, he takes his jacket off, sits by one of the computers, and places the backpack beside him. I've seen him going on his phone, which was in the backpack. Later, around 3 p.m., we couldn't find his backpack. We panicked because we thought somebody stole it and his phone was inside it. We asked around the office and they didn't see it after 3 p.m., but they remembered him having the backpack that morning. We kept looking and couldn't find it. We realized it probably got stolen when he wasn't looking. There were a lot of kids coming in and out for trick-or-treating. We leave the office and go home. I unlock the house, I go in my room, and his backpack is sitting on the bed with all his stuff inside it, including his phone, which he used yesterday. There are texts and a couple of social media interactions he made using the phone, so we know he had both the backpack and the phone that day. We are shocked. We tried to rationalize it as much as possible, but there is no way he never brought it with him. There's concrete proof that he did, such as eyewitnesses, him seeing it, him going on his phone, me seeing it, other people seeing it, and the sent texts alongside other social media interactions that couldn't have been possible without him having the phone. This is the first time something like this has ever happened to me. I don't know how to feel about it. Case file number 1369, written by Pixie Yogi 81. The Vanishing House on Portobello Street. I do dog boarding and dog sitting. I was driving to a client's house for the 4th time in 2 days. It's near my neighborhood, so the area isn't super unfamiliar. I'm not under the influence or tired. The road is Portobello, house number 53. My GPS tells me to turn, and I do so, verifying a street sign. I began looking for the wreath on the door that I have been using to identify the house. I don't see it. I turn around, roll down my window, and start looking at house numbers. Number 49, number 57? Wait, what? I missed the house. But they're all right next to each other, and I was looking carefully at the house signs. I turn around and drive by again. Number 57, number 49. Starting to get shaken, I look around. I see the distinct shrubbery of the house across the street that I'd noticed on my last visit as I was leaving. Drive back by, nothing. No 53. I leave the neighborhood, go back to the main street, turn around and drive back to Portobello. Driving down, number 57, number 53. Right there, plain as day. I call my best friend as I enter the house to talk to me because I'm shaken. She talks to me through the 30-minute visit. As I'm leaving, a huge white wolf-looking dog is staring at me from the end of the walkway. My brain starts panicking, which I express to the friend. A guy comes into view, and I see he has a leash and is walking the dog, just letting it wander pretty far into this yard. As I'm driving home, the owner texts me. She said it showed on a Ring camera when I left, but not when I arrived, and she found this weird as it never happened. I entered and exited through the front door. What the cinnamon toast frick, guys? Case file number 1370, written by Vista Vision. The startling night John Cleese broke the fourth wall. Many decades ago, I was up late watching TV after midnight when a coffee commercial featuring John Cleese came on. Much to my shock, in the middle of the commercial, Cleese leaned forward and screamed or shrieked at the camera. Then he went back to the commercial without acknowledging the scream. It made my heart skip a beat, but then I thought, oh, it's the wacky guy from Monty Python, and it'd be just like him to be in a commercial where he does something like this to freak people out. A week or so later, I saw the same commercial again. I remembered it from before and waited for the scream, but he didn't scream this time. This unnerved me a bit, but then I thought maybe they made 2 versions of the same commercial just to mess with people. I never saw the scream version ever again. Not entirely unexplainable, since I suppose I must have hallucinated it or fallen asleep for 2 seconds or something, but I wasn't remotely tired and never had any kind of similar experience. I didn't think of it again for decades. Then one day, a few years ago, it popped into my head and I wondered if I could find the commercials on YouTube. I did a very quick search for John Cleese coffee commercial, and it was the first result, and just as I remembered it, 1986 Maxwell House coffee. But there was only the normal version of the commercial, no screaming. Case file number 1371, written by Sazo3, the Range Rover that drove out of existence. Once, my boyfriend and I were driving to his house. It was probably at least 10 p.m. and the road we drove was basically a road between masses of fields and a few scattered houses. It was wet that night, but was no longer raining. He was driving, and I was just sitting idly talking, watching the completely straight road ahead, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw something leaving the driveway of a house. I turned to look. I can still remember red taillights, silver alloy wheels, black Range Rover. It was reversing out of the drive. I was so sure it was there that I leaned forward and pointed out the windscreen on his side and said, "B, watch out, the Range Rover." He looked at me as if I was insane, and I met his glance for a second and looked back. There was no car, and absolutely nothing in front of my pointed finger. "But I saw it like there was a car," I insisted. "I know you saw something, but there's nothing there." Glitch? I think so. Case file number 1372, written by Danny Smell. My mother's mysterious intuition, Thwarts danger. I was a passenger in my mom's car, and we were waiting at some traffic lights at a T-junction. The lights stop you a little further back from the edge of the road, so you cannot see the traffic around the corner. There's also big hedges that line the path, so it's a completely blind corner, very dangerous. The lights turn green and my mom doesn't move for a few seconds, leaving the brake on. I ask her if she knows the lights are green. She says yes. A few more seconds pass. I asked her why she isn't going then. The car behind beeps at us to go. She still doesn't move. I ask her if everything is okay when a car suddenly zooms across the road in front of us, obviously going through a red light. I have no idea how fast the car had been going exactly, but I knew it would have done serious damage had it hit us, especially to my mom, as it would have hit her side head on had she gone when the lights changed. The thing is, there was absolutely no indication that the car was coming. Where I live, people don't run red lights, especially on that sort of junction. It just doesn't happen. I was baffled. I asked my mom how she knew the car was going to run the red light. She said she didn't. She had no idea. She just had this instinct that told her to wait. To this day, she can't explain it. She just somehow knew at the moment to wait. Bonus file written by Bread 0987654321. The Do-It-Yourself Ouija Experiment. I visited my best friend Peter in Los Angeles in the early 90s. He had a roommate named Tim. My first night there, we started talking about Ouija boards, and I said, I wonder if we could make one. Peter had a cardboard shirt box from a gift I'd sent him, so I made a board complete with numbers, letters, and yes and no, goodbye, and so on. I also made a planchette out of leftover cardboard, and the board worked. Tim was super drunk and thought Peter and I were moving the planchette, so I asked how I could convince him we weren't. He told me to go in the bathroom and write down a word. Then they'd ask the board what the word was. Okay, cool. I closed the bathroom door and wrote up cup on a small piece of paper, put it in my pocket and went back out. Tim and Peter did the board and asked what the word was, and it spelled out cup. Then I showed the word. I was having a legit panic attack at that point. Peter and I freaked out while Tim screamed we'd planned the whole thing, but it was his idea. We burned the board and I've never messed with one again. Case file number 1373, written by Matt's Got Style, baby. Wisconsin's Whispering Grove. I was bikepacking with some buddies in the north woods of Wisconsin. It was early winter, but not very snowy, just cold. We were about 3 days into our trip, and it was getting near dusk, so we decided to go off the trail a little bit and look for a spot to set up camp. The sun is setting. That's where things got weird. Very, very weird. We saw an area that was in a sort of mini valley, grove, just some little hills, about 10 feet each, and trees on top of them. It was early winter, with barely any snow on the ground. When we started to bike to the grove, the snow started to thicken a lot. It went from 2 inches of snow to 6, then 8, then a foot. There were mostly evergreens and a few trees whose leaves hadn't fallen off all the way yet. We had to walk our bikes through it. We all wanted to turn back and find a different spot. But we had to get to where we were going. It's a biking thing. As soon as I thought about turning around, I started to think about how nice that mini valley was. It was like something else thinking for me. Kinda like when you're just a little bit drunk. My buddies all kinda just looked at each other as if we all had weird vibes. We pushed onward to the grove. Then it started to get very sunny and warm, but the snow stayed about a foot. It wasn't melting at all. We didn't really notice it at first until my friend, let's call him Jeff, took off his coat. It was like when you hear someone say, "Don't itch your face," and then your face itches. Basically, we all noticed how hot we were and started to sweat. Like we were warm. On the inside, but not the outside. It's really hard to describe. When we got to the area, we heard leaves blowing in the trees. It sounded much too loud to be from the last few leaves on the oaks and maples. It's early winter, and the closest evergreen was like 100 feet away, and these leaf sounds were right above us. I started to get a really bad feeling about it. It was like we aren't supposed to be here feeling. Most of my buddies didn't notice, but my friend, who we'll call Eric, gave me a look that said, "You feel that too?" We set our gear down and our bikes up against a tree and settled down for a bit and played some games. But after a while, it started to get dark, so we set up our tents, our little fold-up stove, and our gear. We talked and drank and smoked some ciggies, We were all having a good time for several hours. My friend Eric recommended that we should get some sleep because of how late it was. We went into our tents and settled down for the night. Or they did. There were 2 tents and 3 people in a tent. This is where it got scary. Damn right spooky freaking crap. After everyone was asleep, I woke up with a startle. I had a feeling that I was being watched. I felt very vulnerable. After about 5 minutes of laying there, I heard some animals running around the tents. After another 5 minutes, I got annoyed. I sat up in my sleeping bag and unzipped the window flappy thing that covers the mesh window, and I saw some coyotes. Okay, no big deal. We're 6 on 4. So I quietly zip up the window flappy thing and try to get back to sleep. I can't sleep. I wasn't worried about the coyotes, but I knew something else was out there. I had a terrible gut feeling. I felt like I had liquid fear in my veins. That's the only way to describe it. Then I heard a yelp and a whine. Then a second later, a soft thump. I heard the little coyote's feet running away. It took me a second to register what could have done something like that. Then it clicked, and I was like, oh crap, oh frick man, oh damn. That's not how things work. I realized that something must have kicked it big. There was an absolutely disgusting smell, like mildew, burnt milk, and body odor. I thought it was a bear or something, so my dumbass, save me a lecture, grabbed the can of bear spray that I kept in my bag and grabbed my pistol. I unzipped the tent as fast as I could and froze in place. I couldn't move. Like physically not able to move. Not because of fear. I don't know exactly what the hell it was, but the creature was doing it. What I do know is this. It was not a bear. It stood up. It stared at me for like 3 minutes straight. Whatever it was chiseled as hell. Skinny, yet chiseled. Its eyes were black, with blue pupils. Its head was like the shape of an upside-down sock, but its cranium jiggled a little when it stood up. It was tall, like maybe 15 feet tall. No hair, lanky and skinny. Its skin was in between tan or opaque, but very smooth and shiny. It had long arms, long legs. It was humanoid, that's for sure. But its limbs were oddly proportioned compared to a human, almost dog-like. Or cat-like. Its neck was like a foot long, but it looked layered, like gills, but made out of skin. It breathed kinda raspy, like an old smoker. It had long curly fingers, no fingernails, or none that I saw. They just came to a tip, like a pencil tip. Its mouth was circular. I could understand what it was thinking. I could not hear its thoughts, more like its intentions. I hope that makes sense. I couldn't move because it didn't want me to move. It was studying me. It knew what I was thinking. It knew I was going to shoot at it. It didn't want us to leave. It just wanted to be safe and trusted. It was lonely. It let me go after about 30 seconds. I just sat down on a rock while I stared at it. No matter what, I could not break eye contact with it. I didn't feel like I was in danger, but after its heavy neck breathing and creepy eye contact, I heard a soft, almost anime voice type of whisper in both ears, and it said, "Green is the color of life. Matt Scott style, baby." Then it looked at me for confirmation, blinked, then said, "Okay, bye now." Then it closed its eyes. While it did this, I felt like there were green eye drops in my eyes. As soon as its eyes opened again, the green wash was gone, and it took off into the woods ridiculously fast, like 30 miles per hour. There was a line of kicked up snow that followed the creature where it went, but no footprints. I didn't dare follow it. I didn't know what it was, but I slept very well that night. When I woke up, my buddy Jeff, who was in the other tent, had said he had a dream that perfectly described the whole thing. He said he felt like it was real. I told him it was and explained it from my point of view. Everything was fairly normal after that, aside from guttural screeching in the middle of the night and me and Jeff being thoroughly spooked. Case file number 1374, written by Deanna Chick. The Harrowing Tale of the Abyss and the Hand of God. Okay, without all the details, because the story would be even longer. I almost drowned when I was vacationing in Hawaii years ago. Not a strong swimmer, and the water gets pretty choppy, So much so that they put no surfing signs up. As we were driving by on a tour of the island in a rented car, I wanted to stop. There were a few people in the water, and I thought it looked funny, so I got in for a few minutes and it was fun. Suddenly, I realized there was no one in the water and the tide had pulled me out quickly. I quickly found myself in trouble. I kept trying to swim back to shore, but I was getting pulled out further and further by the tide. Then my boyfriend was on the beach laughing. I was screaming every time my head came above water. He told me he thought I was playing around, but I know he was afraid of the ocean and sharks, and I just knew that's why he didn't try to help. Each time I tried to swim to shore, the tide pulled me out further. Eventually, I was completely exhausted, and my arms and legs felt like rubber, and I just couldn't swim anymore. I just held my breath and started sinking. As I was sinking, I looked around, watching the sun on the surface start to disappear, and all the particles around me. I then looked down into the blackness of the ocean, and I remember thinking that I can't freaking believe this is how I'm going to die. It was surreal. Then, the thought of my boyfriend standing on the beach laughing came into my head, and I realized, this is the jerk that's going to tell my mother I'm dead. I got a surge of energy and started swimming to the surface. I got to the top and started swimming furiously towards the shore. I almost made it, but then I got dragged back out again. But I kept swimming and suddenly it felt, and I swear to God, it felt like the hand of God scooped me up. And like a bowling ball, I was hurled with the next massive wave to the shoreline. I dug my fingers into the sand as the waves started to pull back, and crawled a couple feet and lay there for about 10 minutes. As my then boyfriend came over and said, "Hey, are you okay?" No, I freaking wasn't. I had a bikini and a pair of shorts and a t-shirt on when I went in. Came out with my bikini bottoms and a t-shirt. It took me about 30 minutes to stop shaking. I swear to this day it was a hand of God. Case file number 1375, written by Friendly Coconut. The Magic Uber Ride. I don't have a car, and had to take an Uber home from a rehearsal for a theater production because buses don't run that late. I've done it a zillion times. The Wi-Fi is a little patchy there though, but luckily I have my home address saved in the app. One night, I was riding home when the Uber driver made a wrong turn, then another. Then I suddenly recognize we're going in the opposite direction of my house. I look at the app and it's showing a totally different address from mine, across the county. About a 20-minute drive from my home. It's an Uber pool, so it won't let me change the destination. I can only assume that, since the Wi-Fi was poor, it input the wrong address. Both started with a 5, but I was sure I hit the home button on the app. As we get closer to the random destination, I didn't recognize anything. I'd never been in this part of town before, and I worried that it would be someone's house and I'd have to wait in their driveway until a new Uber arrived. To my surprise, however, it was a large, well-lit shopping center. I was able to pop into the grocery store and get some food while waiting for a new Uber. When I ordered the new Uber, I saw that somehow this new strange address had been set as home on my phone. A year later, I was preparing to move out of my parents' place and move in with my boyfriend. He said he found a great one and got an appointment to tour it, so I tagged along. As we drove to the apartment complex, I saw that same mysterious shopping center that my Uber had taken me to a year ago. It was right across the street from the apartment. I've now lived there for a year and a half and I love it here. I feel like there was something almost supernatural in this shopping center being randomly listed as home on my phone. Bonus file written by Genuine as Frick. When Puppies Break the Laws of Physics. I had just gotten a new pug puppy. Literally could sit in my normal adult female-sized hand. Tiny. Had another elderly pug that was sitting next to me on the couch while the baby was roaming around the living room. I threw a toy about 8 to 10 feet away and went back to my phone. It was a small stuffed toy. The only reason it went that far was the arc I got. It had very little weight to it. A moment or two later, I'm smacked in the face, sitting on a couch so about 4 to 5 feet off the ground, with the toy. I look over and the puppy is a solid few feet in the opposite direction of where the toy landed, next to the dining room table. Problem number 1. No way that Pudgeball could have teleported a few feet away from the spot of the toy in a second or two, if she had actually been by the toy in the first place. Problem 2. I'm embarrassed to say I actually tested this by getting down and trying to recreate it. There was no way a being of her size had the ability to fling that toy 8 to 10 feet across the room at the velocity it hit my face. I did my best dog impression of swinging it right and left, and only got it a foot or two. I did everything I could to recreate it, but I just couldn't. And if a grown adult doesn't have the power or motor ability, there is no way a pug who weighed less than a pound and was still learning to trot without falling over on her face could have gotten over there, flung the toy with enough force to actually smack me in the face noticeably, and then run off to another spot and act confused. Case notes for file 1365. Dragonfly 813. It's kinda hard to conceive of a more interesting method to say hello to loved ones than this, because it's subtle at first, but then there's a wave of realization that just crashes into you when you consider how many spiritual things your grandfather would have had to pull in order to accomplish this, in order to orient your sister and yourself into precisely these rooms, and that bunk for you with the little pin of the dragonfly. Wow, I'm very impressed, honestly. This is just a cool story of a grandfather who wanted to be known again. Case notes are file 1366. Ghosts of relationships past, present, and future. So first I want to add a little note regarding breakups. It's true in one sense of the coin that you're causing heartache and pain to someone you presumably love or at least liked a lot. But if you're being honest with yourself and don't see yourself happy with them long term, it's a form of kindness. If you're not happy, there's no way they would be either in the deep of the future. In a nutshell, you're not a bad person for breaking up with them, if the reasoning was along those lines. That said, breaking up with someone is never an easy thing to do, and if you do it wrong, well, you can cause more pain than necessary. But no one's perfect, so don't beat yourself up too much if you fumble the ball. Now, seeing into the future isn't the real mystery here. It does happen quite a lot, or soul projecting to witness current events happening now in the present. But the missing time, confirmed via security camera footage, that's just wild. I think this may have been your guardian angel interfering more directly than they usually do, just to show you that she's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. She's going to go on and build herself a good life, and it's okay that you broke up. You don't have to concern yourself with that. If the future didn't come to pass, then I would say, oh, it's just your mind, your subconscious trying to ease yourself. And at the time this happened to you, maybe that's what I would have said, but given that indeed this did predict the future, what actually would happen to her, it's pretty clear what happened. Some force, maybe a guardian angel, makes the most sense to me, wanted you to feel at ease. Mission accomplished, I hope. Case notes for the bonus file, the Whispering Pines. As humans, we have a very sharp sense to unusual presences. Animals do too. But I think our ability to sense danger is at times even more pronounced. At least, we can sense danger from virtually no input at all, when there's effectively nothing to go on whatsoever. People often underestimate their ability to know when danger lurks around each corner, or in this case, behind a pine tree. It's a real and potent kind of spidey sense, without any comic mutations required. Embrace this power. Could save your life one day, seriously. And I have no idea what was actually out there. Was it just a human being trying to break in but realized people were there when you screamed? Or was it some supernatural entity? I guess you'll never know. And that's a good thing. And now time for the quote of the day. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. But raptors are pretty scary too. Devin J. Monroe. Ah yes, the raptors. You know, first time I watched Jurassic Park, I think I was like 10 or something like that. My dad showed it to me. My dad would show me a lot of movies that maybe weren't ideal for my age range, but I'm okay with that at this point. But I was pretty terrified. There's nothing, I mean, a giant T-Rex is menacing, and we have a whole mythos about that, with an exaggerated version in Godzilla, just destroying buildings and everything. Not what you want to wake up to, let's just say. But yes, only fear itself unless there's a raptor chasing you. Then you can fear the raptor too. 100%. Case notes for file 1367. My friend vanished into thin air right in my living room. So a doppelganger encounter, which perhaps is multiverse related. You simply saw a version of your friend that was from a different universe. Funny how I can seriously use the adverb simply to accurately describe this, but there you go. If it quacks like a duck and so on. The really trippy part is her being ported back over to her real universe, switching back and forth. Into your living room over there. So, over there in the other universe, where this first one was from, She was uninvited by your perspective because she just popped into the living room over there. But to her, you had invited her. So I bet they both freaked out more over in that universe, where she just popped into your living room. I bet you freaked out a lot too. Like, what are you doing here? I guess it could be a pleasant surprise, but you'd figure, like, did you break in? This is a bit forward. Case note so far, 1368. My kid's backpack disappears in broad daylight. So wait, trick-or-treating in an office building? How cool is that? I've never seen an office building do that, but nice. This glitch is actually a little stumping. It's not just a DOP and then a return, because objects almost always come back in the general vicinity of where they disappeared. There are a few rare exceptions, where there's sentimental value in an object, like a necklace or a ring, that just mysteriously ported back into like the living room or bathroom of whoever lost it, even though if they lost it at sea or in a different state or whatever. But usually those are after months or years, and they have a great value to the person. Like a backpack is pretty ordinary, even with a phone in it, and it re-emerging almost instantly, the same day. Feels like some conscious entity would have to be involved in this. A guardian angel is always a good bet, but it doesn't fit neatly like most glitches do, so I'm just not sure on this one. Case note so far, 1369. The Vanishing House on Portobello Street. Cinnamon Toast Frick. I will be borrowing this colorful expression. If this was a case of multiverse shenanigans, then there are some problems with that theory. The house wasn't there a couple of times, then it was. So let's say you were driving along in a neighboring universe, then brought back to the original. The other universe was notably different, with the whole house missing. I guess it's plausible, but it's pretty rare for an adjacent universe to have something that large different about them. But if that's the case, how come you were not picked up on the Ring camera? Because when you went into the house, it was in the original universe, you already were back. Unless, remember the story involving the couple that suffered extra glitches for a few days after their multiverse event? They were looking for the AC remote, he went outside, but the girl said that he remained inside. They weren't in the same timeline or the same universe. But then they came back, everything was normal, but they had extra glitches happen to them over the course of a few days. So maybe you were ported over to a different universe, came back, reloaded into the original universe, but you literally were not fully rendered in. Your code wasn't 100%, so whatever mechanism is used to detect you on a Ring camera didn't trigger for that reason until 30 minutes later when you left. It's kind of unsettling though, because I think multiverse transitions happen pretty often. So if there's errors that can happen in the process where you're simply not coming back all you, at least for a while. And now time for the quote of the day. The estimated amount of glucose used by an adult human brain each day, expressed in M&Ms, is 250. Harper's Index. So you're saying that I can eat 250 M&Ms every day, and my brain's gonna use all of that energy just like that. Not too shabby. Yeah, I guess I have to eat some vegetables too. I'll get on that. Hey, nothing wrong with steamed broccoli. With a bit of oil or butter and salt and pepper. That is so good. You can stir fry it a bit after, get some color, or just stick it under a broiler. Make sure it's a bit charred. That is next level. Case notes for file 1370. The startling night John Cleese broke the fourth wall. So my guess is the commercial was produced, as you suggest, with him breaking the fourth wall deliberately, but it was never meant to air. What you saw was an accident. Or maybe it was just a gag reel, like it wasn't meant to air. This is just some joke that John Cleese did for the crew in the filming of the commercial. But maybe somehow it was accidentally aired as the real thing. I don't know, because you'd need to edit it and everything, so I don't know, maybe not. It is conceivable that it is from a different universe though. So it was meant to air, but in that universe where the commercial agency had a better sense of humor, I guess? Because this does sound pretty funny. I wish I could see it too. Case notes of file 1371. The Range Rover that drove out of existence. I can envision a lot of car accidents are actually caused by this kind of multiverse shimmer, let's call it. Seeing things that are there somewhere else, but not truly here, causing overreactions and other driving errors. But that only you saw it. It's more than just a space-time portal then, as previously thought, that can cause these multiverse sighting events. Maybe only some minds can interface with these portals, with these anomalies. And others don't perceive it at all. I think that would make more sense because of the frequency I believe these portals exist in. If everyone could see them, then I think there'd be a lot more accidents going on every single day, caused by them. Case answer file 1372. My mother's mysterious intuition. Thwarts danger. Yep, there you have it again, the universal spidey sense. Most have it, few embrace it. Kudos to your mom, Riti. She listened to her spidey power and saved herself and maybe you too. And serious shame on whoever it was that ran the red light like that, especially around a blind corner. I mean, that's someone who has no regard for other human life at all and none for themselves either. Or they're just completely foolish or drunk. That's always a possibility too. Very shameful. Case notes of the bonus file. The do-it-yourself Ouija experiment. I understand burning the board, after absolute confirmation that spirits exist with this test. If you're not in the know like we are, then that'd be indescribable. That said, really, most spirits aren't evil, out to get you. I bet whatever spirit was there was just lonely. There's a kind of sad irony in that, isn't it? I mean, most spirits are just like most humans. We're just lonely, wanting that divine spark of human connection that'll endure. It's not always easy to find, but it is easier to find as a mortal than as a spirit, so there's that silver lining. Now time for the quote of the day. In the end, you'll know which people really love you. They're the ones who see you for who you are, and no matter what, always find a way to be at your side. Randy K. Milholland. They stick with you through thick and thin, no matter what. And I think this is an important life lesson to learn, is who you choose to be friends with matters almost as much as what you decide to do with your own life, because your friends are going to influence you. They're going to help you. They're going to need help as well. And if you're with someone that is more parasitical, never gives, only takes, they're energy vampires, that's going to be a negative detriment to your life in general. So be sure to surround yourself with good people. And don't feel bad if you simply don't vibe with some person. We choose who we are close to, and that is so critical to our future. Case notes for file 1373. Wisconsin's Whispering Grove. So it was warm on the inside, but not the outside. That sounds like what people who drink a lot of alcohol feel. Which isn't to say you were all drunk, more that it was a false sensation. There wasn't any extra heat. Which makes sense, as the snow wasn't melting at all. Something was inducing that sensation from within, affecting your minds. Maybe this entity was trying to connect to your minds, and that was creating this anomaly of feeling heat. Here's a question to ponder on. If my instincts are accurate in this case, that this was an extraterrestrial alien, perhaps had crashed here a long time ago, trapped and lonely, awaiting rescue from his own kind, well, given the vastness of space, that could take a long time. Even with advanced spacecraft, maybe they don't have FTL drives faster than light. So in that case, it would be some sort of a long-term trip where you're in stasis for the majority of it, which is perfectly viable, it just takes a long time. So if that's the case, that could explain a lot of these creepy creatures that are encountered out in the woods, where these aliens, maybe only a handful of them around, dwell. My guess regarding the noises you heard after this event, just coincidence. Normal animal mating calls, or indeed the screams from animals being violently attacked by some other predator. I guess it's unrelated to this unknown humanoid that you encountered. The only thing I can't really explain, I've never heard before, is the sensation or the visual sight of green layering over your eyes. Never heard of an alien or any entity inducing that kind of thing. Very strange. Now time for the quote of the day. Whatever you do will be insignificant, but it is very important that you do it. Gandhi. I love this quote. I'm big into science fiction and just science itself, like physics and space and everything, but when you ponder the vastness of space, boy, you can quickly feel completely insignificant. But that's the wrong way to think about it. Is there a grand meaning to life, a cosmic scale purpose? I don't know, maybe not. And in that case, if that's true, then yeah, your actions now don't matter at all. In 1,000 years, even if you cure cancer, it won't really matter. They'll have cured it then again, twice over. But is that depressing? Should that mean you just give up and do nothing? No. What it means is, this is a kind of game, a simulation, if you will, if it is a simulation. Maybe by God, maybe by humans in another dimension, I don't know. But what I can tell you is, all we have is what's in front of us, and what connects us to emotion and reasoning. And that's other people, other human beings. So what we do does matter because it affects other human beings. And you know, this is probably why I have trouble playing single-player games, because in reality, you're just playing against a computer. And to me, I can't connect with that. If I want to play something or do anything, and this is weird for a hermit-style introvert to say, but unless there's other people involved, It doesn't matter to me. But when you put another person, even just one, then everything matters. So nothing matters in the cosmic scale, but everything matters on the human scale. Case note so far, 1374. The harrowing tale of the abyss and the hand of God. Riptides are extremely dangerous and often hard to spot until you're already in one. The best thing you can do if you notice you're being dragged away from the shoreline is to swim parallel to the shore, not towards it, but to its side. The riptides are long, and you can't swim against it. The current is too strong. You'll just tire yourself out, as you did in this case. But usually, you can run parallel to the force pulling you out, so just run out of it, swim out of it, and they're not usually very wide, so that's the best strategy. You see the shoreline, you're being pulled away, just look 90 degrees to your left and swim that way, and you should be okay. Also, I'm glad you say he was your then boyfriend, no longer. Someone who laughed at a riptide event is either stupid or just evil. People die all the time from them, so maybe he just didn't realize how dangerous it was, but in that case, they're far more dangerous than sharks. I think it's possible that your guardian angel tried to infuse you with more energy. Maybe just the perception of energy at an adrenaline spike, so you could save yourself, even if it wasn't the proper way in a riptide. I'm glad you're okay. Case note so far, 1375. The magic Uber ride. So I'm curious about Uber etiquette, because I don't use it much. Heck, I think I've only taken 2 Ubers in my whole life. But if the address is wrong, by your mistake or some technical error or perhaps a glitch in the matrix, whatever the cause, can't you just physically tell the driver that it's the wrong address? Maybe that's taboo, I don't know. But it's unfortunate you had to pay for a ride home twice. At least nothing bad happened, but that still sucks. It does seem as simple, in quotes, that your phone somehow received your home address from the future, where you're gonna live in a year from the then glitch. I really can't offer any explanation as to how this can happen though. Only that it sometimes does. Perhaps it's like asking why the speed limit of the universe is 299,792,458 meters per second in a vacuum. Well, that's the speed of light. That's the speed of causality just in general. But there's no reason why it's that, it just is. Can't tell you why, only that it is. Maybe that's enough for now. Case notes for the bonus file. When puppies break the laws of physics. I will say, never underestimate the powers of a small dog. They're fast as lightning. Kung fu fighting. But I do agree in this case how you describe it. There's no way it was a dog. It must have been a spirit nearby just having fun with you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now time for the quote of the day. It is well that war is so terrible. Otherwise we would grow too fond of it. Robert E. Lee. While there's a lot of truth to this, but also an unnerving amount of not entirely true. Because some people do really love war. They love the sheer raw will to power of it. And that is extremely dangerous. Of course, who suffers in war? It's all the innocent civilians that have nothing to do with anything. It's very sad, in my view. Yeah, is war sometimes necessary? Perhaps and unfortunately. But then I also ponder a question. There's this word, collateral damage, which means when innocent civilians die, unintentionally, so-called. Well, if someone breaks into your house and then commits some atrocity against you, but then flees into a neighboring house full of innocent people, can you harm those innocent people to apprehend the person who harmed you? I don't think so. And I think most would agree, right? So if you scale it up to hundreds or thousands or millions of people, at what point is it acceptable to harm innocent people? To seek retribution or even to protect yourself? I don't know the answer to that question. It's not 100, it's not 1,000, it's not 10,000, is it 1,000,000? I don't know. Something worth thinking about though, I think. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.